Welcome to another weekly episode of Marked Out Radio. I'm Sean.
And I'm Dana.
And we are fresh off of our interview with Dillon Hines last week. And also, we have lots to talk about with regard to PWJ Damaged Goods and our vendor table there and our million private signings we did that day. But you actually had a little bit of a busy week this week. I had a busy week totally outside of the world of autographs, but you had a busy week. What did you get up to?
Seems like I only have busy weekends. I don't think I've had, since you started hibernating, I don't think I've had one completely free weekend, which is really crazy. But this weekend, I had a doubleheader of sorts. Yesterday, I had, which I'll start there, I had Spike Lee at Pinstripe Pride, which is a Yankees convention run by Hall of Fame signings. That was in New Jersey at the American Dream Mall. Have you ever been there before?
I was about to say absolutely not, but there, who knows? I mean, with the number of signings I've been to over the years, it's possible there was some small signing that I went to, or something that I went to years ago that I just don't remember. So I'm going to say not to my best recollection, officer.
This mall, honestly, is like everything I think you would hate about malls. It's like it felt like you were going to an arena because it's like right in the shadow of the MetLife Stadium. You have these massive parking garages. I made like 2 or 3 wrong turns just getting into the parking garage in typical New Jersey fashion. Because I guess if you're in the middle, you're supposed to be on the outer, and all these crazy little nuances of New Jersey, where I ended up adding like 15 minutes onto my trip just by spinning around in circles. And I finally got in. It's massive. There's like a theme park in there. There's like a Ferris wheel outside. It's just a complete massive place.
Yeah, I have no. This does not sound familiar to me, so there's a pretty good chance I was never there.
Yeah, I don't think you've ever been there. So I walked in, and in completely rational decision making, it was like 11:20 or 11:30. I got in there. Spike Lee was at 12:30. So what did I do? Did I check in? Did I lay out the signing space? Did I get my physical tickets? Because it's not 2025. Apparently, we still need to pick up physical tickets. Did I do any of those things? No. I instead went running around the mall trying to find Toys R Us because I saw there was a Toys R Us in the mall.
Did you find it?
I found it, and guess what I found inside?
I'm going to say nothing because I would have told you don't bother before you went in there.
Well, here's the thing. I knew I wasn't going to find anything good. I just wanted to see just how ungood it was. So I ended up, I found ended up finding the figure area. And I found the one location and the one place in the world besides the marked out headquarters that has more Grand Metal Leak basic figures in stock. They had a stack of Metal Leaks. I couldn't believe it. And they had like Tucker, like Otis and Tucker. They haven't gotten new WWE figures in years. And it's like they honestly might as well just throw them in like like some dumpster fire somewhere. What kid is going to walk in and want a Grand Metal Leak?
I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah, I don't know. So that was that. Toys R Us was a bust. Although I did buy a plush Jeffrey because I wanted a Toys R Us bag. And I was actually excited to see the Toys R Us charge hit my Apple Pay, which is really not sane at all.
Not even a little.
No, it was cool though. Anyway, so Spike Lee. I was joined there by Lanza and Greg 2600. Gotta respect the gimmick. And it was crowded. It was like in the middle of the mall. The will call line was like 25 minutes long, which makes 0 sense when you can just email someone QR codes, have some scanners at the actual, we've been to signings before, but no, you have to wait on this line to pick up the paper tickets. If God forbid you wanted to buy an actual autograph or photo op on the spot, that line was a separate line. That was another like 25 to 30 minutes. It's just, organizationally, it didn't really do a hell of a lot for me on that level. But guess what? It's a Yankee show. I don't really need Yankees. I don't think they'll bring out many filmmakers I love beyond Spike Lee at future shows. So it's probably a moot point. But yeah, organizationally, I was not thrilled with it.
So how was Spike?
Spike was honestly awesome. I thought he'd be kind of like standoffish, a little reserved, but no. Like when you walked in for the photo op, he, handshakes, what's your name? he like set it back. He like, it was just like he seemed like he wanted to be there. He was having fun. Lanza got him going about the Nick game that was happening that night. He he was great. We got our photo up. We saw Jerry. He came down for, get this, he got Spike Lee, which is not really surprising, but he got Roger Clemens for $220 because apparently he appeared in a Simpsons episode.
It is a pretty noteworthy Simpsons episode, though.
I don't remember that one, so I'll take your word for it. But that's a big wad of cash for old Jerry, though, on a Simpsons cameo.
Yeah, no, I think what it is that, I mean, there are certain people who transcend sports, and they sort of entered the pop culture lexicon, and I think Clemens kind of flirted with that at his peak.
I think
MLB.
the steroid scandal probably pulls him a little away from that for me. But Jerry's probably not even really aware of that. So Jerry just remembers him as a kid growing up in hearing the name. So I could respect that, I guess.
So you got, what'd you do? Just a photo op and some signatures, or what?
Yeah, photo op and signatures. So after the photo, the print was relatively quick. The downside here was there was no at least I didn't see any sort of a system to recover a JPEG. I know I could just hear Class 316's like brain like just short circuiting now if he when he hears this. For me personally, it didn't really matter. Some people, I think you could actually force your camera or your phone into the photographer's hand and he would just use that instead. I didn't care. I know the prints are fine. I scanned it. I ran it through my apps. It looks fine. So then after that, I had a little bit of trouble finding the autograph line. They were like calling people to line up, and then I would ask staff like, "Where is Spike's autograph line?" They're like, "We don't have one." I'm like, "Then where are you call?" They're calling people over the loudspeaker to go where. And then finally, I got on it. His autograph line, I would say photo op line probably drew maybe 30 to 40 people, which we saw Luigi from the board. He was on that line. Lucas and Michelle. A lot of marked out originals were there. Ben Pensata, if anyone knows any of these people from the New York area. And then the autograph line, there was probably like 6 people on there. And I got 2 prints done. I had a whole fiasco with a laser disc. Apparently, laser discs in the original wrapper is not a good thing. I bought it thinking it's in better shape, but the wrapper couldn't come off. And I think I botched it, like you suggested, that I should have used the hairdryer. But instead, I think I went right to a dampened cloth and a little bit of hand sanitizer, which ended up just like, it wasn't good. So that laser disc didn't see New Jersey. I ended up just doing a last minute Walgreens run.
Yeah, I saw the eBay returns hitting the marked out shared email account, and I was like, "Oh Jesus, what's happening?"
Not good. So anyway, Spike was great on the autograph. He popped for the Black Klansman print. He wanted to know who it was. I told him it was John David Washington, and I mentioned how I saw him at the Hamptons Film Festival, and then I gave him the Do the Right Thing print, and inscriptions were like an extra $79, I think, and I didn't even push for one. I just put it down, and he chose to give me a love and hate, which if you know Do the Right Thing, that's a pivotal, I would say the most pivotal like theme in the movie. So he hooked that up on a nice free inscription, which I'll never turn down. And all in all, smooth, great catching up with Lanza and Greg and everyone else, and Spike couldn't have been better.
Sounds like a pretty good time. So then what else did you have?
Today, I went down to the K&S Sportatorium. And like I said to Ken, that damn Sportatorium keeps looking nicer. Now he has like glass shelves. He's displaying like big rubber guys loose, which blew my mind that Ken like actually spent money on loose figures he can't like sell later. I'm sure he will sell them later, but I made a joke because he has like a fish tank that said how the fish even have like bow ties on now that he's classing this place up. It's looking good. You wouldn't even recognize the Sportatorium. Of course, I'm sure the bathroom still looks like crap, but I mean, that's the charm of the Sportatorium.
So who was there?
Barry Windham, who I've met probably 10 times, who I have 50 autographs of. But of course, I needed him on the Galoob. Because, I mean, why not start getting Galoob signed, 35 years after they came out? It sounds like a great idea to me.
Galoobs are given the fact that the production numbers on those are nowhere near what the WWE Hasbros were, the Galoobs are still mostly a bargain. You can get that set relatively cheap. So I do understand the appeal of them. They were awesome, awesome, awesome figures. I love them. I had all but there were a few of them I didn't have because they were like regional exclusives. It was weird, but I had most of the set when I was a kid, and God knows they've been lost to history.
Oh yeah, I think I still have my loose ones. I love them. But yeah, I think I got this Wyndham for like $50-$60 on eBay. It was a really great price. And while I was at the Sportatorium, and this is not often I can say this, I saw Brian Myers' Galoob was down there to get signed as well. Mine was in better condition, and he's a snob. So I was shocked that mine. It's probably the only time in history I've seen one of mine are better than his condition was.
Huh.
But yeah, Barry was great. I got that done, and I threw him on my original Super Brawl 2 poster because, you know, it's huge. I'll definitely get that professionally framed and take up like 4 feet of my like living room or den wall eventually.
Right next to the wedding photos.
Yeah. I think I'll sell her on, you know, let's make the wedding photo smaller so we can fit the Super Brawl poster and it can have, you know, its room. But no, it was great as always. Barry's cool. Everything was smooth, and here I am.
There we go. So, I had nothing happening this week, which is going to be the theme. In fact, it's we have an event in 2 weeks, which is like I'm not too thrilled that I paid for that, but here we are. So let's just get into it. I don't really have anything on my plate for the next couple days. So let's just talk about last week because last week, whether it was social media engagement, posts on Facebook, comments on YouTube, people DMing us, last week's episode had far more engagement than any of our other episodes. Were you surprised by that?
I think surprise is a strong word because I think largely that was why we were more into doing it. Like I think we knew it was interesting, and we had a feeling that interesting nature of the story and the discussion would lead to engagement and spikes and all that. But it was like a full-time job dealing with that. We had some compliments, we had some criticism. I think we should we'll get into a little of both, I'm sure. How about you? Were you surprised? Were you expecting it?
I mean, look, we made that decision. We said that we were looking to put the show out there for people who have not yet listened to it. In the interest of full disclosure, the idea for having Dillon on came from Ken. I don't believe we mentioned that. Maybe we did. I don't remember. That idea came from Ken, and we're like, all right, that's it. It was, it made sense. We had both, we had both talked about the controversies that had involved Dillon in the weeks past, the RVD stuff, the Matt Riddle stuff, the Lex Luger stuff was discussed contemporaneously. Not that this podcast didn't exist yet, but and so we had some knowledge of this stuff, and we knew that people were interested in it. So I'm not gonna lie. Much of the feedback, I'm not going to say all of it because there was some positive feedback, but a lot of the feedback was negative. That's fine. I really don't have any objection to that. My feelings are not hurt by that. Some of the criticism I think is valid and sincere. Some of it is, by insane people who are, it's whatever. I do want to get into some of it though, because it's interesting, at least for me. And so I guess for you, what was we'll start with the ridiculous sort of idiotic criticisms first that we can easily just sort of dismiss out of hand. What did you think was some of the criticism that we just shouldn't take seriously?
I think the whole, he's a bad man. You shouldn't give him a platform. Why would you put him on? I think honestly the voices making those whiny complaints were probably the same voices that still had their panties in a bunch because I sold Sid autographs for the same price that Ken sold them for when he was alive. But God forbid I did that while he was dead because I'm capitalizing. It was like that kind of this annoying, self-righteous kind of complaints like, oh yeah, let's stick our head in the sand because someone's a bad person. But then by all means, let's wait online, 15 years ago to meet Jimmy Snuka and all these other people that are, just pillars of humanity, great people. Never did anything wrong, but God forbid we talk to someone.
Yeah, I mean, it there's no other way to say it. I'll talk to anybody. I don't care who it is. I don't care what they've been accused of doing. I'll talk to anybody. I am one of those people who are annoying in that regard. I will never say this person doesn't deserve to be listened to.
No.
or like if I find out that someone is dishonest to me or tries to rip me off personally, then I'll be like, hey, I mean, hell, even if someone tries to rip me off personally, I would still speak to them because I think that well, first of all, hearing people is the only way you can really assess whether or not you believe them. Let's face it, a lot of the people who were leveling criticisms about Dillon's business practices are themselves, idiots and liars and fools. And there is a degree of like, okay, no, look, like we mentioned at the end of the show last week, I would imagine a bunch of the criticisms about Dillon are at least partly, if not totally, valid on some level. I don't even think that's anyone who listened to that and anyone who knows these stories. I'm sure there's plenty of criticism about him that are totally valid, totally true, and whatever. And so if you believe that he was just sitting on this show last week lying his head off the whole time, fine. Then you came across and you were able to assess what he said as being untruthful. Then I'm totally okay with that. If nothing else, it gave people an opportunity to hear someone who they don't believe talk, and then you'll come to that conclusion yourself. I just find the impulse very strange for people who are like, we shouldn't even bother listening to this person. And I'm not gonna lie, I think some of the criticisms against Dillon, and I made this post on Facebook about this, are really of a personal nature, not in a professional capacity, and it's done because people feel safe singling him out and criticizing him. Like, even if I will stand by this, even if he did every wrong thing they said he did. So let's just take that for granted. Let's, for the sake of argument, say he did every bad thing he's accused of. That still puts him on par with several other truly awful people in the wrestling business and in the autograph business. And yet the people who feel no fear tearing Dillon apart in public will say nothing, either when they're in the presence of or when they're speaking about those other people who we know are as awful as or more awful than what Dillon's been accused of. And so for me, then, and maybe this is a warped sense of like responsibility, I don't know, but then I feel it's kind of our responsibility to kind of call out that hypocrisy. I find it absolutely ridiculous that you can. It's not credible to suggest that Dillon is uniquely bad in this business. It's just simply false. If he did everything they say he's did, then he is a run of the mill, rip-off artist and kind of loser. I can name a dozen of them who are just like that. And that's one of the things that's so infuriating, is that nothing he did is particularly unique. He's being accused of not refunding money. Some of the most trustworthy vendors out there have been accused over time of not refunding money. He's been accused of forgery. There's plenty of people who move 10 times the volume that he moves that we know are engaging in forgery. He was accused of behaving unprofessionally in public. Guess what? We've seen things too of people behaving unprofessionally in public and making general fools of themselves. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, he is not unique in any way. And I find it really troubling and fascinating that people make these comments, and lots of people make comments about, how they perceive his mental abilities, right? His intellectual abilities.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that I pass no judgment on that. You can listen for yourself and make that decision. Okay. I have nothing to say about that, but I find it's a crank. I would never in my life, if I was out in public calling someone mentally disabled, and then in the next breath talking about how they ripped me off for thousands of dollars, I'd never admit they ripped me off for thousands of dollars. That is a humiliating thing to admit. It says that you are either not vetting your business transactions in advance, or
you're dumber than him.
It just makes no sense. I know. Yeah. It rocks me to my core how anyone would admit that happened.
It makes no sense. It's like, imagine you get into a fight with someone. Let's say you go to a bar on a Friday night, you get your ass kicked. You're not going to come in and to work the next day and make the guy sound like he was smaller than he was. Yeah. Oh, he had one leg. He had one leg and a hoof. Like, you're going to make him sound like he was like
he's 10 feet tall, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But that's the problem is, and I've said this before, and actually it's funny because in talking to other people, we've talked about this thing before that, this business is made up of a lot of people who are not that bright, and they say things that are just, they're contradictory in nature, and you listen to them and you go, what? Like, you can't, how do you say that out loud? And so you hear people talk and I can just dismiss what they say out of hand immediately when you know that they're just dumb. And it's a fascinating thing to listen to people do that, and it's with this whole hashtag Hines crime family and all this stuff, and yet and RVD is the one doing it. And I'm going to be honest, I listened to RVD's podcast, his own podcast episode about Dillon Hines. RVD gave a pretty credible accounting of what the relationship between them all was, right?
Yeah.
But I stand by my critique, which is RVD said something to the effect of, I knew 10 seconds after meeting Dillon that he was autistic. That's what RVD said. And again, I'm not in any way like passing judgment on the veracity of that claim. I'm not interested in that. But how do you then in the next sentence say that you accepted bookings from this guy for 2 years? One does not follow from the other. If I go and I meet someone and I have doubts about their mental faculties, the last thing I'm going to do is to tether myself to that person in terms of money. And I guess it speaks to like the seediness of wrestling in particular, that people are just willing to do business with whomever.
Yeah. It's one of those things where we've touched on this before. They will take bookings from absolutely anyone. And again, let's assume, for argument's sake, RVD is correct. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that RVD is a trained, he has the trained ability to diagnose autism and all these things. RVD is just all-knowing. He's right, and everything he said is true. You took bookings with this guy for years, and then at the end of the day, you got ripped off. Well, I mean, I don't feel sorry for you, because why did you keep working with someone that you instantly saw was impaired? And that's not that wouldn't absolve Dillon of what he did in this scenario. But still, I mean, RVD is a grown man who has the ability to diagnose autism in 30 seconds. So he should, be able to leap tall buildings and not get ripped off by people with impairments. So I agree with you. I don't really have sympathy. And I wanted to, before we move on to like the valid critiques, I want to just touch on one thing from the sort of the silly. We had a ghost from a convention past. Greg Price popped up. Greg Price wasn't happy with us, Sean.
No, Greg Price. So for those of you who don't know, neither of us. Have you ever met Greg Price?
No, and I thought Greg Price honestly was dead. I haven't heard about Greg Price in years.
So he ran the NWA Legends convention down in Charlotte, which is now run by Marty from T-Mart. I never went to that convention. From what I heard, it was fantastic. People have said for years it was the best wrestling convention that ever existed. I believe that. I believe that just looking at what they were charging down there versus the value that people got, people seem to always have a great time. I never read a bad review. It was always complimentary. So Greg knew how to run a convention. God bless. That's really not the issue. Is that Greg was really disparaging, I guess, towards us and me. Basically that we were unprepared in our questioning of Dillon. Apparently, Greg doesn't understand that when you interview someone, one of the techniques that you use is you say, I'm not really too familiar with this. Can you explain it? Even when you're familiar with that thing, you say that as your lead so that person gives you as many details as they know. It's a little bit of a psychological trick, and I'm probably tipping my hand in saying this, but just as a general rule, it's kind of like when I'm in front of a class and I say, I'm not too sure what this means on this page. Can you explain this to me? I know what it means. It's a psychological thing that you use. It's a strategy that you use. So in saying things to Dillon, like, I'm not sure about the thing from RVD. I heard something. These are techniques that interviewers can use to use on him. Now, it boggles the mind that he doesn't think that we knew about this stuff. But then again, there are also these rabbit holes that we could have gone down. I mean, I don't know if anyone listened to this. A lot of people listened to it last week. But I'm going to be honest. There were names that Dillon brought up and circumstances he brought up. I had no freaking clue what he was talking about. And that was not because we didn't do our research or listen to things. It's because he kind of went off the reservation and started talking about things that I didn't know about. You know,
Yeah.
It was one of those. I can't know everything. But the RVD situation we knew about, the Lex Luger situation we knew about.
And we let him talk. That was the point. We let him talk, let him offer up details, and allow the listeners to sort of have an opinion. Not to cut you off, but like when people, I think Greg even mentioned that, like, why would you give him a platform? My argument always was, my answer was to that, and I'll make that answer here. Not all platforms. Some platforms are gallows. Like, you give someone a platform to allow them to talk, that's not always going to help them. Like, this is not, that's not necessarily that, oh, we were up here defending his crimes. We let him talk. All of our listeners have ears and brains, and if they chose to listen, make their own decision. This was not, I didn't go into this interview saying, I want to call out, why did you not refund Charles from Biloxi? Like, I'm not here to play bounty hunter, to run down secondhand information that I have no proof of, that I have no stake in. Like, that was not my goal. My goal was to create content that is interesting, and that's for everyone to be the judge of. Apparently, Greg Price, I would say he didn't think it was interesting, but he wrote us a nice big paragraph. So, I mean, I guess he kind of did.
What happened was these people, what they wanted us to be was an avatar for them and just berate him and yell at him. And look, that's something we could have done. And I believe he would have hung up the call in 2 seconds. You know, I feel like we gave him almost 2 hours to speak. There's plenty. I am certain that if people want to comb through that and find, statements that he made that they can contradict to other statements, that's their business to go look for that. If they want to find things that he admitted to that he had previously denied, that's certainly something that you can look into and make that determination. That's all very reasonable, right? But to sit here and just lambast someone is going to lead to them to hang up the phone. It's not like he had any kind of obligation to stay on the phone with us. One of the things that we have to be mindful of is that someone can hang up the phone and that's the end of the call. Then we're done. And so it's like, sure, I could have been like, no, Dillon, I think you forged Lex Luger's inscriptions. But at the end of the day, number one, who the hell cares what I think? I'm a guy, right? And number two, he'd hang up the call and that would be the end of it. And so what is accomplished from that? There's no benefit.
Yeah, people don't realize I had that 90-minute phone call with Dillon prior to us going live with him and recording. And much of that phone call was his apprehension about being sort of set up, being attacked, being railroaded. And I assured him, I'm like, we want to have a conversation. We want you to just tell your side, let our listeners decide. We had questions that we had to be able to ask. If he would have said, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, we would have not moved forward. We had topics we wanted to get to. He agreed. I'm not going to tell this person on the phone, like, okay, we're going to have a fair conversation and let you tell your side and then start screaming at him about, RVD said this. How do you respond? That was not my goal. I did not want him to hang up. I did not want him to then be able to go out and say how the Marked Out Radio lied to me. I want our guests, whether it's Charles Manson or Charles Mason, a little wink for what we're going to talk about later, whoever it is, I want them to feel comfortable and understand that what we tell them we're going to do is what we're going to do. That was my goal.
Right. This is not 60 minutes. Okay. This is not, that's not the point of it. The point of it is not to interrogate someone. And again, a lot of this stuff cannot be proven. And what's amusing about it, again, I hate to keep beating the drum on RVD, But one of the people that RVD was using, because I did watch, because the link that Greg Price posted, I did watch the interview with RVD, and one of the people who RVD used to support his argument was Sabu. Now, say what you want about Sabu. Anyone who books wrestlers knows that Sabu has a reputation for a lack of professionalism. And that's just
sure.
it's something that is just true. So forgive me for being skeptical when Sabu says that someone owes him money. Now, granted, if someone wanted to take advantage of Sabu, I think that's something that someone could do because of the circumstances that he's in. But that doesn't. I would not use him as an example of someone who always tells the truth and is always above board in his dealings with people, and is always a great steward of money. And it's not a credible person to use.
No.
So I do want to say though that's because we did have some criticisms that we were too easy on Dillon, and I do think that those criticisms do have a little bit more merit. There were times when Dillon said things that I did not agree with, or that I was pretty sure when the way he spoke was unclear enough that I was like, I don't even really understand what he's saying. Like, a good example was the explanation of the Lex Luger inscriptions. His explanation was not clear for me, so I based on the fact that he spoke with a lack of clarity, suggests that he was not telling the whole story. I really didn't understand what he was saying. But at the same time, I don't think, and I kind of made that decision, and we made that decision because we were texting back and forth the whole time, whether or not to press him on it. And there were certain things we probably could have pressed him on harder, because I do think people were waiting to hear him pressed on things. But again, we were always up against the possibility that he would hang up the phone. And so we had to weigh whether we would press him on things or whether he was just going to, or whether we were going to let him talk. And I think we both agreed that we would let him talk and let other people decide.
Yeah, I think if I could pick out one thing I sort of wish I pressed a little harder on, it would have been the Lex Luger inscriptions, because I was blocked on Facebook over that. I remember, I don't have, somewhere in my messages I might be able to find that old conversation from 4 years ago, but I don't remember it clearly exactly what happened. And I after that, I'm like, I should have pushed that a little harder. And then I realized, like, even more so now while we're talking about this, it sort of clicked for me. I don't think anyone listening to his explanation on the Lex Luger inscriptions had their opinion changed. I don't think anyone that thought he was guilty now thinks that he didn't do it. And I think, honestly, again, not all platforms are positive. Some are the gallows. I think what he said on its own can sort of tell you the story about what those inscriptions might have been about. I don't know. We weren't there. No one was there. Yeah, I really think that he gave enough answers and enough dialogue that if people want to go fact checking what he said, that you could do a whole lot with that. Like you said, we weren't trying to have the call ended. I wasn't trying to come at him half cocked with hearsay and this, and I remember that, and I wasn't there. I honestly, for me, the fact and opinion, that line in the sand means something to me, and I don't try to treat opinion like fact. And that's really, I think, where I stand on that with the inscriptions.
We got him on the record for 2 hours talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
That's more than pretty much anyone got. So have at it. Pick it apart, say whatever you will. I do think, again, that a lot of the people criticizing him are cowards. Not for criticizing him. If you believe he did bad things, by all means criticize him. They're cowards because they work with people who also do things that are as bad as what they're accusing Dillon of, and they say nothing.
Yep.
And again, right. we are very conscientious about not. We said this in the other episode. We are conscientious about not saying those names because we also know that saying those names actually accomplishes nothing. The people who are on their team, fans of theirs, or work with them and profit off of them, will just attack the messenger, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. So it's the kind of thing where all I can do, and all Dana you can do, and all we can do, you and I collectively, is sort of govern our own actions by a code of ethics, more or less. I will do X, I will not do X. in terms of working with wrestlers, I'll work with anyone. I don't. I mean, I know I'm not working with people who are generally of high moral character. Some of them are. You can clearly see when you speak to them. Some of them are not. And
I'd book Benoit if he came back from the dead
without even hesitating. The whole point is that there is always a little bit of a certain strangeness to this parasocial relationship that we're selling, and there is some strange. Let's not even pretend there isn't. So it's like we've already kind of made our peace with that, right? But that's also why we're not going around pointing fingers self-righteously at other people who we perceive are doing immoral things. We don't forge. We don't steal people's money. Those are our codes, right? That's it. We don't steal people's money. We don't forge. We pay talent before they put pen to paper. Now, I'm going to be honest. There are people who look at us like losers for paying talent before pens touch paper, because they know that you can probably weasel your way down out of an agreed upon number. Look, but Dana, between you and me, and we talked about this when we mentioned splits, split bookings when we were talking to Dillon, and specifically there was certain talent we had on under split deals, and that talent basically made almost no money. I felt terrible. But that was the agreement we reached, and if that talent tried to insist on a flat fee after the fact, I would have been like, absolutely not. Because as long as you go into an arrangement with open eyes, then you are responsible for the consequences of that arrangement. So for someone like RVD or Sabu or Matt Riddle or whoever, if they went into the arrangement with Dillon Hines with open eyes, which I have to believe they did because these are multi-year professionals, then they have to accept the consequences of that. And for RVD, and I'm going to be very direct, RVD charges $10,000 for an in-person signing. Now, I'm sure you can get discounts if you book them for multiples or what have you. Okay. I am also pretty sure that most of these people who are booking RVD at $10,000 are not profiting on those bookings. $10,000 is a lot of money. That's a lot of autographs to sell at the table.
Yeah, I mean, if you do the math on what the combo costs to how many combos you need to sell, it's a big one.
$10,000 is 100 people spending $100 each. That's $10,000. Not even taking into consideration that there are other incidental expenses. A $10,000 booking is really, when all is said and done, closer to a $12,000 booking. Especially if you're traveling, if you're staying in a hotel, if you're having meals, if you're buying pens that have to be thrown away after that signing, if you're buying prints, God forbid, if you're buying figures and stuff, a lot of money goes into these things. And so if you're sinking $12,000 into an appearance, that means that's 120 people at $100 each. Okay, can you even get $100 combo for RVD? I don't even know if that's about what the going rate is. Yeah, that's a lot of.
He's around there.
That's a lot of people. In fact, Dana, I'll ask you right now: Would you pay $10,000 to bring RVD into the big event in next month?
Listen, I would have to be smoking as much as Rob Van Dam to make that decision. Absolutely not.
Because I will tell, and I will put our numbers against anyone's. There is a 0% chance of making $10,000 back at the big event if you bring RVD in for $10,000. So all these people who are bringing in all these high-priced guests, they're taking losses on those bookings. And then RVD is not. I'll tell you, one thing he's not is stupid. He's actually an intelligent guy, which means he knows that most of these bookings are taking losses. Why is he doing it? Because he looks at the person booking him as a sucker who will pay him $10,000 for his appearance. That's the game, okay? That's the name of the game. The wrestlers will charge as much as they possibly can because they know someone will pay it until someone says no. And that's when the number starts to decrease.
Yeah, for vendors, I don't think they realize, like, as a vendor, like, we brought in Sandman as an example, and we were setting him at the table, and our goal was to collect money from people to make our bottom line. I think a lot of vendors don't realize that the talent is doing to them what you are doing to the fans. The same difference. The talent needs to hit their mark, whatever they deem as their mark. That's what their guarantee is. They are looking for someone to pay that. Now, there are some talent out there whose guarantee is low enough, like, Sid was before he died, where you could still do really well with that number. The ones that are savvy and intelligent and out on the scene all the time, they know what they can make. They know it's very difficult to win on those types of deals. So like RVD at $10,000, you're the only one winning on that is Rob Van Dam. So I don't feel that much sympathy if he's entering into deals with his eyes open with someone, and then all of a sudden, like you chose to work with this person, you set the prices, like it is what it is. There's no innocence in that. It's just shit happens, and if it happens, then you should evaluate who you're working with.
Look, and the one story that Dillon told about RVD was when his father Bobby Fulton booked RVD and I guess quit or something like that and threw the markers down and said, "You keep the table." I mean, look. If it happened that way, and I believe it happened that way because Dillon said it and RVD said it, that is the wrong way to do things. If you pay, but everyone is wrong in that scenario. So yeah. RVD was given a $10,000 guarantee, and Bobby Fulton was hoping to pay the guarantee out of the table earnings. Now, Dana, we've done many, many, many now table signings and events and things. Do you ever go to the signing with not enough cash in your pocket so that you can rely on earnings from the table to pay the talent?
Absolutely not. But that is a common practice. That is absolutely a common practice.
It is a common practice because mostly dirtbags are running these tables.
And they don't have the money. If you don't have the money, you should be able to take a complete loss that you would have not a single fan within eyesight and you could still pay your commitment, because that's the thing. You made that commitment. You should have that money. People that rely on that are just broke morons that should not be in this business.
And honestly, some people would look at us as suckers for doing it. But every time we have a deal with the talent, we go to the ATM and we pull out the exact put it in an envelope, seal the envelope, and write the talent's name on it. And then the exact amount in cash is in that envelope. And that's what we do every single time. Because unless it's a split. Because the understanding is, I'm not going to play with you. You're not going to play with me and hold me up for more money. And before they even touch a pen, the envelope is in their hands. Now, are there talents who can take advantage of that? Sure. But then I feel that I have the moral authority to go nuclear on someone who would behave that way, right? And so, but someone like a Bobby Fulton, he books RVD. He books him for $10,000. He promises RVD $10,000. They get there. They didn't make any money because the convention wasn't drawing, and so he just quits and throws the pens and down. I believe that occurred. Yeah. I believe it was very, dumb. But Rob Van Dam started signing without getting paid, and it's fascinating to me that he did that because you just don't do that. You don't do that.
If you read his posts, I mean, and this is a sort of a quote from him, that Bobby Fulton's a notorious carny, cheat, scam artist. Like, he's acting like he knew this since the first time that he diagnosed autism. Like, he's known this forever. So, like, why are you trusting this guy to pay you after you work when you know who he is? Like, again, and that's not victim blaming like our old buddy Greg Price likes to do. That's just being real. This is business. This is absolute business. And you're entering into this business and you're doing foolish, reckless things. So you will take money from any carny, disgusting sucker out there. And then you're going to say, oh, poor me. Like, it doesn't work.
If you're a talent and you get to the show and you are not working on a split arrangement, if you're working on a guaranteed arrangement, and you don't have the money in your hand before you put pen to paper, what that means is the promoter doesn't have it to pay you. That's the truth. And then the response to that is to say, well, why am I working with this person who is so cash poor?
Yeah.
I know why they do it. I know why they do it. They do it because they're given a number that's exciting to them. And so they take a risk. Well, you know what? If you take a risk on a number like that, then sometimes risks fail. That's the nature. Risks are not risks if they're 100% guaranteed, right? If you take a booking for a lot of money, more money than you probably should be making, more money than you can reasonably be profited on at the table, then the little red light should go off in your head where you go, well, how is this person paying it because they're just a sucker? And if so, understand what the implications of that are. It's very, very frustrating that when there's clearly everyone involved in a story as being a carny, but then one person is self-righteously calling another one a carny. It's very frustrating to me. Give me a break, okay?
Yeah.
It's fundamentally dishonest, and so I think RVD is being fundamentally. I don't even think RVD thinks he's being dishonest. I think his worldview is so warped by being in wrestling for the past 30 years that he thinks this is like normal behavior, but it's dishonest. Greg Price, supremely dishonest, just supremely dishonest, and people like that, and that part is frustrating to me. If you have a genuine case against Dillon Hines, as I suspect there are people who do, then there's no reason to come at it from a dishonest perspective. No. That's the truth. So,
and you also shouldn't look to a podcast episode, which, while informative, is at its core an entertainment platform, to be your vehicle to justice. Like, I'm not Chris Hansen. I'm not, like you said, it's not Dateline or 2020. Like, it's entertainment at the end of the day. It's informative entertainment. And I was not, I did not collect all the people wronged and try to appease them and get their money back. That's not my role.
And the truth of it is, individual customers who have claims to, be owed money by Dillon, I feel bad, because there's individual customers really have no idea how vending works and how booking works. And a lot of people send their money to whomever. Should people be a little bit more careful about who they send their money to? I think so. But at the end of the day, I don't blame individual customers. However, talents and vendors, give me a break. Give me a break. Yeah. Okay. Everyone knows who everyone is. Everyone knows who's good for the money and who's not. Seriously, give me a break. If you're going to cry ignorant and claim, I didn't know, I would have no idea. I'm sorry. Then grow up. Then you deserve the hit. You deserve the spanking and the financial loss because you're an ignoramus. It's not like all this is springing to light as something new. We've been hearing this stuff. The rumors have been around for years. There are certain wrestlers in particular who we wouldn't touch because we've heard bad things about when they're brought in. They misbehave, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, we're not going to suddenly if that wrestler suddenly offered, and this is a real thing, right? So that a misbehaving wrestler suddenly offers us a 50% break on what their normal rate is. It might be worth booking them, but it might be worth booking them with the knowledge that you might lose that money.
Yeah, you're gambling. That's the deal.
Call it what it is. It's gambling. Sometimes you win. Many times you lose. And if people were just honest about that, but they're not. They're fundamentally not. There's a certain infuriating self-righteousness about it that, people have. So could we have been harder on Dillon? Absolutely. Could we have said, Dillon, what you just said for the last 5 minutes, I have no idea what you meant. Can you please explain it in a better way? I don't understand it. Sure. Because honestly, there were a few times when I was like, I have no idea what's going on right now. I texted you. I said, I have no idea what's going on right now. And we have to make a decision. Do we press? Do we move forward? There were digressions that were happening that we didn't plan. There were things that were discussed. And I'm like, I don't even know where this came from. But you know what? Let the guy talk. You don't like it? Press forward.
At the end of the day, that was the goal. And just to put a bow on the whole thing, I don't even know if Greg Price will know that we addressed what he said since he blocked us. He was very upset, apparently.
Listen,
but I found out.
Go ahead, sorry.
I found out two things. One, Greg Price wasn't dead. Second thing, Greg Price is apparently running another show, the Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Legends Convention. I can only imagine how good that show is going to be when some other vendor takes it over in a few years and does it better.
I mean, look, I have no problem with the way Greg ran his shows. Again, I've never heard anyone say a bad word about those shows. It's my understanding they were an awesome time for the fans. I'm never traveling to the Carolinas for wrestling convention was something I would never be willing to do. That said, if you know Greg is an old man with brainworms. He is the definition of Grandpa Simpson yelling at a cloud right now.
Yeah.
That's what he is. That's what he's turned into. You might think that's sad. You might, whatever it is.
I'm
know
shocked
the
he
guy.
knew what a hashtag was.
I can see his internet presence. He sounds like he sits around stewing in his own anger all day. That's fine. I can pretty honestly say I don't stew around angry all day. I'm pretty happy. Pretty positive, and I have no it's just funny to me how the weird cognitive dissonance that these people experience, and how I hope there are things that I don't have that kind of cognitive dissonance about. I mean, I guess if I did, I wouldn't know it. That's one of those. I would hope someone I would hope someone who I was close to would tell me, "Hey, you might as well want to shut up about that. You're just wrong." But that's part of the circle of life, I guess. When you get older and you start ranting on the internet about things, and that's it.
Yep, and guess what? As much of a moron as Greg Price is, if he wants to come on our show and have a conversation, we'll talk to him.
Of course, I would talk to him. Listen,
that is interesting content.
He ran a fantastic wrestling convention for years. He was one of the first people to be willing to openly speak about what a ripoff con artist piece of garbage Ric Flair is. Right? Greg Price was part of that, and it's funny because he took a stand in that instance back in 2010. He took 2010 or 2011. He took a stand and honestly faced potential. He took a risk. He faced potential reputational damage by going toe to toe, by going nose to nose with Ric Flair. Greg Price and High Spots publicly, rebuked Ric Flair when Ric Flair was up to his shenanigans with stealing money from people. And that what's funny is that was a moment of bravery, because that could have actually cost Greg Price something. And so it's interesting how
that's very fair.
In 15 years, he's gone from being a pretty brave person, I think, in this arena, to a cowardly person. And I would still talk to him in a heartbeat, because I think that's interesting. I think going head to head, going toe to toe with Ric Flair, of all people, back in 2010 was a gutsy thing to do. I admired it at the time. I remember really being like, "Damn, this guy is laying out the whole truth." He's a clear communicator. He's a good writer. I thought that his post on it was really well articulated. I was like, "Damn, I'm loving this." And so now to engage in this kind of mudslinging there's plenty of people in wrestling to go after who are thieves and crooked and weird and all this other stuff. This is just low-hanging fruit, I guess. Any thoughts on Dillon before we move on to the actual point of the show?
No, but I will say you were a lot less petty than I was on Greg Price, but I do echo your mature points. I think at a time he definitely was, running a great show. I think he definitely had some cojones going after Ric Flair. But yeah, I think now he's kind of, I don't know what he's doing.
So if you're shopping for autographs, check out www.markedoutcollectibles.com or our eBay store at Marked Out Collectibles. To contact us for any reason, please email markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com or join the Marked Out Collectibles official marketplace on Facebook. All links are in the show notes on Facebook and Substack. And if you want your event, product, or brand advertised on episodes of Marked Out Radio, reach out to us today at markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com. Also, we thrive on your engagement, so please subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast. Make sure you can leave us a review on Apple Podcast. You can leave us a rating on Apple Podcast or Spotify, or you can leave comments, thumbs up or thumbs down on YouTube. So we got to do an update to my selling off of the collection.
Are you still selling?
I am still selling. So a funny thing that happened when we bought the VIPs. This is really funny. So we didn't talk about this contemporaneously, I don't think. When we bought the VIPs for Russell Crowe, they gave us a poster ostensibly to get signed as one of our VIP items. However, the poster had Asbury Park, New Jersey spelled incorrectly on it. And so very few people in line got that poster signed. Most of us brought our own items. And what they actually told us was they would send us a replacement poster. And I'm not gonna lie, you weren't holding your breath that we would actually get that, were you?
Absolutely not.
And so about a month after the show, we all did receive a signed indoor garden party poster, which was a nice little surprise. It was a free extra autograph. What did you do with yours?
It's currently in a stack of prints on a shelf.
You know what I just did with mine?
What?
I just sold it.
How
so
much?
that was $100.
Holy crap.
So if someone clearly wants an indoor garden party poster signed by Russell Crowe, and to that person I say God bless you, because I don't want that, and I got it for nothing, and so it reduced the cost of my VIP by $100, which is fantastic.
See, if I was saying I would sell mine, but then I keep feeling like it's only I only have two. I have two total Russell Crowe autographs. And that doesn't feel like enough, so I feel like I should hold it, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me because the item itself has no value. Sorry to the person who I just sold it to, but it's true. All right, so last weekend, and I feel bad kind of because we were supposed to talk about this on last week's show, but then the interview with Dillon kind of fell into our laps. We had the PWJ Damaged Goods indie show run by our very good friend Gil, and also at that show we did 7 private signings. The marked out table was roaring full steam ahead for like the 4 hours or 5 hours before the show even started, just signing after signing after signing. Let's talk about it. I guess let's talk about the signings first. So what were your impressions?
First of all, I can't believe we did 7 signings. Like, that was insane. It really was. Like,
it was. I was stressed at the beginning. Especially since, and this is no shade to these guys at all, because everyone we did signings with was really, really nice. But it's also clear that several of them were not too accustomed to signing large quantities of autographs, and they were moving very slowly.
Yeah.
Listen, at the end of the day, they were careful. They took their time. They gave us a high quality product, and I'm exceedingly grateful for that. But I was sweating bullets a little bit when some of them were signing really slowly, and the other talents would come over and make fun of them for being so slow, which is what happened. A couple of the talents came over and were poking fun in a fun way about it. But it made me a little bit anxious because I really wanted all of the signings done before bell time, and we only got done with 6 of the 7 before bell time, and we actually didn't get the final signing done until after the final bell, which was for me very just nerve-wracking. But everything worked out beautifully. It was just funny how it worked out. So I guess we'll talk about the people. What were your impressions of them?
Well, before we get into that, I think it's hilarious that my tradition of every time we do anything at an indie show involving like signings, I always am like running through the doors about to like crap my pants, and that trend continued.
As someone who is traveling with you, we're often carrying things, boxes and bags and things into the venues. It is always I really should prepare mentally more before this happens, because where I'm trying to carry things, you're trying to carry things, and you're sweating bullets because you have to go to the bathroom. And yeah, it definitely put an amusing damper on the initial entry, because all these talents are walking around, and I did the primary greeting. And the funny thing was, when you did most of the contacting with the people. So when I introduced myself and I gave them my name, they didn't know my name. They were looking for your name, and so I had to no, he's actually taking a power dump right now. He'll be up shortly.
Just told him to come find me at stall number 4.
Yeah, I mean that's what. So a few of the talents, I made a joke about you being occupied, but that's what happened. It's pretty funny.
But yeah, I mean, overall, it was absolutely awesome. Before we get into the signings, I just want to touch on really, really quick. Gil and his team did an amazing job. That show, top to bottom, once the actual show started, like every match was like varying shades of good. Some were like excellent. I thought the Mathers Trevor Lee match was crazy. You were like yelling. You were really getting into it.
I mean, Mathers was phenomenal. Trevor Lee was phenomenal. Trevor Lee's going back to the bigs shortly. Has to be. He was
Yeah, he's too
phenomenal.
good. He's too good.
Mathers, I'll tell you, and let's talk about him because he was the first signing we did, right?
Yeah.
So I got to say something. Dana does all the promo photo editing, but we talk about what photos we like, and the Mathers photos were the ones I was a little bit concerned about because the photos they were only okay. They didn't really capture what I was hoping the rest would capture. And I didn't really know who any of these guys were. I never seen any of them live before. Mathers was the best wrestler on that show. And so he comes alive when he is phenomenal. He has incredible physical charisma. The crowd was behind him 100%. His photos do not entirely capture, and I'm saying this about our product here. They're still good, but they don't capture how awesome he actually is. I have no doubt in my mind that Marcus Mathers will be signed by one of the bigs. I have no doubt in my mind. He's a phenomenal wrestler. He has tremendous charisma. He was super nice and easy to work with, which has no bearing on his being signed in the future, I imagine. But phenomenal. And I gotta say, honestly, someone needs to hire that guy, a professional photographer. That's a real professional photographer who's somehow able to capture what he's about, because his photos do not capture how dynamic he is. He is an underdog baby face that you want to just pour your heart into because he gets his butt kicked and you want him to persevere.
Yeah, I think I picked and now I feel like I'm defending my work here, but I think I picked the best photos that were out there. I think, like you said, I just don't think the photos do him justice as far as like his overall presence. And just the second I saw him in the ring, I was like, yeah, exactly. Like, whoa, this is not what I was expecting. I thought, he was one of those more or less, like an indie darling type of guy that you're like, all right, if he's popular enough, maybe he could really catch on one day. But you see him like this dude is TV ready. He has major league polish. He has major league polish.
He does. He was the best worker on the show. I don't say that lightly because I went in there not even thinking that was going to be the case, and it really is not. In my opinion, it's not even close. Actually, he was by far a standout.
Probably the best dance partner out of anyone else that was there. I mean, Trevor Lee was phenomenal. Phenomenal. I can't believe anyone released this guy. He's so good, honestly. Yeah.
Trevor Lee is also a great wrestler and clearly was there to make Marcus look good, and he did. And so you're right. He did have the best dance partner. And so really, I hate to say who was the best worker. That was the best match. It wasn't really even close at how good it was. It was a legit, not an indie, a legit excellent match. And I was not expecting to see. It's rare that you see a legit excellent match on an indie show. And it was just top to bottom phenomenal. And at the table, he was a total gentleman. We're going to be sending his dad some prints, right?
Yeah, his dad wanted some of the promo shot ones in particular. So he reached out to us after they were already signed, so we're just going to send him some free ones just to let him fill out his collection. But don't worry, guys, they won't be the metallic ones since those are 5 out of 5.
Yeah, limited.
We're not playing around with that.
It's so interesting to me. I ask basically the same questions when all of these people are sitting around. We're doing the signings, and one of the questions I ask everyone is, especially because the young kids, some of these kids, Jackson Drake's 21 years old. These are young kids, and I'll be like, what does your family think of this, or is your family supportive of this, and how does your family support it? And I got the idea from it when I asked Billy Starks. And Billy Starks told us about how her dad was converting the garage to this shrine, of all her wrestling stuff. I thought that was really funny and really just endearing. And so it's interesting which of them have parents and family members who are clearly invested in their career choice and in their overall progress, and which of them is they say things they don't mind it, but they're not really into it. And that's interesting to me.
you could tell Mathers was more from the Billy class, where like
Absolutely.
his dad's gung ho. You could tell that his dad just is loving every second of this. Like his dad, I believe, was in the business as well, and now his son is killing it, and he's just like a proud dad, just enjoying every moment of it. And that honestly, that makes me want like forget our investment, like just meeting him, talking to the dad. Like I want him to succeed even more. Like just he deserves it. The family deserves it. He's skilled as all hell. Like absolutely.
Yeah, he works really hard. It's clearly he worked really hard. Who after Marcus
Drake.
was Jackson Drake, another one. I mean, it's so funny because we told one of the first things we said to Jackson was we reached out to him a year ago or 2 years ago. It was a while ago.
I think honestly 2 years ago and then a year ago after that. We've been trying in like waves.
So we've talked about this before, but basically ever since we did the first Billy Starks signing, we have been scouring Instagram looking for the next, up and comers because, we the first time we got Billy Starks, she was, kind of an indie darling. The second time we got Billy Starks, we believed that her signing to TNA was imminent. TNA, AEW. I don't know why I said that. And then they ended up releasing the promo of that Billy Starks is All Elite. Was it a month or so after that second signing? It was very quickly thereafter.
Yeah.
And so we kind of were excited by the idea of finding these people who were going to be the next big thing, not imminently, because if they were being signed imminently, like the second time around, we got Billy Starks to do it because we had already had a relationship with her. It's very hard when someone has a name to get them to do these things because they don't need us, And so
not at all.
Jackson Drake, 2 years ago, we tried because it was, first of all, I sent you the thing. I'm like, he's a kid. He's 19 years old. I don't even think he ever came. He never left the Carolinas by that point. And I'm like, he's gonna be big. You could just see he connects. He has energy. He's a certain charisma with the crowd. He's a super worker already at 19. And
he's also taller than I thought.
He's a big kid. He is a big kid. He's over 6 feet tall. He's gonna fill out. The funny thing is that he looked like a little luchador kind of 2 years ago. Now, he doesn't have huge muscle mass. He's only 21, but he did have muscle mass, and he's tall. So he looks like a main roster guy.
Oh, yeah.
He was awesome. He really didn't have a reason for not reaching out. I just don't think he was monitoring his DMs properly.
I'm sorry to make you have to like bleep this if you choose to, but I'm going to say it anyway because it was just like it actually captured who he was, and that was just it made him even more likable. When I said that we reached out to him like 2 years prior, his instant reaction was, I wasn't shit back then. And then he's like, well, I ain't shit now, but I damn sure wasn't shit back then. Yeah. And like that's the way he looks. Like that's the way he feels about like situation. Like he's humble as could be. He doesn't have this huge inflated ego. And also, as a result of that, I was talking to Lucas yesterday at the Spike Lee event. I didn't think he set up a gimmick table at all at the PWJ show, but we had our own stuff to worry about. I figured maybe I missed it. He didn't. Lucas caught him like walking and got him. Like he's not even thinking about he's not selling 8x10s. He's not selling t-shirts. He comes in, he wrestles, he does his thing, he goes back home. Like he's not. He has a whole different mindset of that.
Well, yeah, because when I asked him I can't remember if I asked him or you asked him, who got him into the business, because it's always interesting, what these guys will say, and his answer was that he was a huge New Japan fan and that he was watching Shibata and Okada and Tanahashi, but Shibata was his guy. And so if your inspiration is Shibata, I mean, now we're going deep on Japanese wrestling, which like probably 2 people on listening to this even care about. That was not what I expected. I expected like Jeff Hardy or something like that, as an answer.
I was like an AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, that
CM Punk, one of those guys. And for him, when he said Shibata, I was like, all right, now I understand some of this. He wants to improve his craft. One of the things I said to him, because it was just really cool. One of our longtime marked out the board members / customers sent a Shikishi board to have all of the talent sign. A Shikishi board, in case you're not familiar, is like it's a white kind of thick cardboard, almost like a thicker than a piece of oak tag, but and it's very common in Japan for people to get those signed instead of promo photos. And so lots of Japanese talent, when talent go over to Japan, they see them before. Jackson Drake has never gone internationally yet, and so he'd never seen a Shikishi board. So, by the way, person who had their Shikishi board signed through us for Jackson Drake, that was the first Shikishi board he's ever signed. He hasn't gone overseas yet. So one of the things he said was he's hoping to be able to, as part of the ID program, tour Japan by this year. I'm hoping, honestly, now that WWE has a relationship with Pro Wrestling Noah, that they send him over there for a few months, and I think he's going to turn into he's going to rise to a whole different level. Because if he's this good now, and he's never been to Mexico, he's never been to Europe, he's never been to Japan, people get better when they're forced to learn the other styles. It makes them smarter. And he hasn't even done that yet. So Jackson Drake is, it's funny because I was very high on him before the show, and I'm way higher on him now afterward.
Same. Absolute same. So after Jackson Drake, we had Brittany Brooks. Brittany Brooks came over. Actually, no, it was Emily J. Sorry, Emily J was the next one.
Yeah, so Emily J was definitely a crowd favorite.
Yeah.
You had, and Emily J is not one of the ID people.
No.
But I do see her as kind of she's more of an indie darling than I thought or than I realized.
Same.
She was very popular with the crowd. She was a little bit. I felt like she was lost in that 4 or 5. There were lots of people in that match, probably unnecessarily, that she didn't get a chance to shine in the way I think she could have. But
you could tell her connection with the crowd. Like,
oh yeah, they were very into her.
Yeah, they cared. Our sales reflect that. Honestly, she was one of the ones where we kind of. I thought she had a great potential, still do, but it was one of those things where we floated an offer to her that we were comfortable with, and when she accepted, I was happy. But it was she was not one of the main reasons we were there, but she turned out to be one of the most successful ones.
Yeah, to be totally honest, there were a few signings with the show where we didn't really expect to do any pre-order business. The whole point was, let's get some inventory in case they pop in 6 months or a year or 2 years, and then they'll have some value. And she did great pre-order numbers, so
I know. I was very happy with that.
Yeah, very happy. And then when I saw her connection with the crowd, I totally understood it. Brittany Brooks, she came over next. She was great. She interestingly, she was just coming off a long-term injury, which I didn't know. But
yeah, that much I knew. She's been hyping her whole return tour.
Yeah, she had another one. She had a great rapport with the crowd. She was great at the table. Nothing really else to say. Then after Brittany was Zeta, right?
No, Casey Navarro.
It was Casey Navarro. Casey Navarro was funny because he walked in and we were kind of hesitant to. He had his bags, he had his coat. He walked in. And he was
getting close to doors. It was close to doors at this point.
Exactly. Maybe 45 minutes from doors. And he wanted to. And we assumed he was going to go down to the locker room, change, chill. And you kind of went over to him just to say, "Hey, we're here when you're ready." And he just "No, let's do it right now. Let's go." And he's, which
banged it out. Yeah,
I appreciate that tremendously. When someone wants to not dilly dally and just fulfill their obligation, that's a huge thing for me. So I love that, that level of go-getterism, and he was, the crowd loved him.
Oh yeah. He is smooth as could be in the ring. He's really, really he can talk, he can work. He's one of those guys that he would be he would fit in the golden era of the X division. He would have fit in WCW in the cruiserweight division. I think he could move up to a different division because we're not so caught up in size anymore. In wrestling, he's good. He is good. Fans love him. Not a single complaint from our interaction.
Yeah, he was great. And then of course, after
we had Zeta next.
Zeta walked in again. It's kind of same situation. She had a lot to take care of, a lot to do. She came over. Zeta did something at an autograph table that I've never seen before. You should describe it, because my face was, I don't even know your face. We were like looking at each other like, what the heck are we gonna do?
Which I guess we probably shouldn't have left all the pens on the table like that. I mean, no one's ever done this before. She just kept picking up different pens. You try one color, try the next color, try the next color, try the next color. And everything looked great. It's like I wasn't complaining. Like, it all looked completely fine. The different colors, it's cool. It gives people more variety. It was a bit of a nightmare in terms of inventorying and putting up the listings, because you have 47 different colors. But it all looks good. You could tell when she walked into walked up to the table that she, has a polished, demeanor. She is going to be on TV in the very near future. Did you get that reaction?
She also,
well?
absolutely. She also had the most experience with autographs and stuff like that. She had already done overseas tours and stuff. She's someone who is definitely seasoned, and she worked her match very much like someone who is seasoned. Also, she had tremendous heat. But she was really, really easy at the table. Did anything we wanted. Was good. It was interesting. For some of these guests, we were told it's important that they get paid before they start signing, which I appreciate. Interesting, because then we said, no, we'll pay everyone before. We're not holding anyone's money until after. So I think that was interesting. Yeah, we always, that's a matter of practice. We always pay everyone before.
Yep. So after that, we were then we had we had Charles Mason. But at this point, the show was about to start. Doors were about to open. He had a pre-show meet and greet, so it was quickly made. It was obvious at that point that that was not happening before. So then we sort of we set up our gimmick table.
Yeah.
And as usual, you had better luck than I do in these situations. Somehow your stuff always sells and mine doesn't.
Yeah, we had our dual marked out stuff, which I gotta say, this is a really funny thing, and I don't even know how to say this in a way that's not going to get us in trouble. So, a few months ago, we had an opportunity to do a signing with Maria Kanellis. Right now, in her day, Maria Kanellis was kind of a red hot performer. She was wildly popular. She was one of the WWE women who did a Playboy cover, right? And there aren't too many of them, right? No. It was only a handful who did that. And so she really was one of their big stars. And so when we had the opportunity to do a signing with her, one of the things that we kind of wrestled with was getting some of her Playboy shots signed. And, we wrestled with it because we questioned who would buy this. But we'd also heard that this was something that people did and there was some market for it. And, why not give it a shot? See if people buy it or not. And Dana, will you say how many of these Maria Playboy shots have we sold to date?
Not many. I mean, I thought nude, metallic, custom edits was going to be something that was going to really, set the world on fire.
Or wait, you said, have we sold any?
No, we've sold one or two, I think.
One or two?
Yeah, we definitely sold a couple.
So anyway, we brought these among other things to sell at the show, and a bunch of the promo shots and 8x10s and stuff were in this box for people to go through, but the Maria shots are on top, and I can't tell you how many people came over, looked at those, raised their eyebrows, and then walked away, which is hilarious to me. But what are you gonna do? We also, I sold a couple of lucha masks. I signed a Jushin Liger signed mask.
You sold the Jushin. You didn't sign the Jushin Liger.
Oh, I sold the Jushin Liger mask that I had signed years and years and years ago. An appearance from, many, many years ago, which was cool. I also sold a Curryman, Christopher Daniels mask that I had signed probably 2007, 2008. something like that, a long time ago.
Long-term
Which was
investments right here.
yeah, which was fun. And that was, the truth of it is, having a table at shows like this, it's really tough. People's money is stretched thin. People want to spend money at the gimmick tables for the wrestlers themselves. They want to give the wrestlers money. They don't want to give us money. And so unless you have something that's really interesting and attractive and different, it's just not going to move. So that's just one of those realities of doing a show like this.
So all that to say, we still have a couple Maria nude metallics in stock. If you're in the market for that,
if anyone wants, we're willing to go pretty good on the price.
Yeah.
If anyone is interested in that, I mean, you don't have to say it publicly. You can just send an email.
Absolutely. Okay, so also at one point Nick Gage was I guess doing Nick Gage things in the crowd, fighting and smashing things. And I think you and I both had a genuine concern that our merch was perhaps in a bit of a jeopardy.
Well, as it turns out, in the main event, they wiped out Brittany Brooks's merch table and destroyed her stuff. So it wasn't. The main event was Charles Mason against the guy from TNA,
Steve Macklin,
and they destroyed a table, and it was Brittany Brooks's merch table. So I hope that she was in on that and that they properly compensated her for that, because that would be unfortunate if not. But I was worried that our stuff would get wrecked. Yeah, there was some anxiety there.
Maybe not so much the Maria nudes. I mean, I think Nick Gage could have used those, but everything else I would have been kind of a little heartbroken to lose for no monetary gain. But
yeah,
that is a good segue to our last signing. The show was over. And full disclosure on Charles Mason, that was originally set to be a Dana solo venture. You felt, we were extended enough. You really didn't care to do Charles Mason with me. And then you saw Charles Mason in action. You saw him sign the stuff up beautifully. And what'd you say?
I changed my tune. I did, and I very rarely change my tune. I didn't even change my tune after Jacob Fatu and Joe Hendry when I probably should have. but in this case, I did. I do think that Charles Mason he's got something. I think he's going to be a star somewhere. He's definitely someone who is getting better and getting bigger and had a tremendous crowd response, which is of course I think the barometer for all of these things, how much the crowd is engaged. And I was super impressed.
Yeah, he was a cool dude. He was the kind of guy that I personally like. There's people you enjoy more and less as far as BSing with. He was cool. He was laughing about actually I shouldn't even say he was laughing. He wasn't laughing. He's a stone cold killer, and he acted as such. But he was a cool dude, and he signed everything beautifully. We got some awesome messages like die, F you, all sorts of lovely messages to his adoring fans.
He was game for anything.
Oh yeah,
actually they all were. They were all game for everything.
They really were. And I'll tell you what, those are the kinds of talents that when as we sell through this stuff, I'd be down to work with just about all of them again, because they were easy to work with and they did everything we asked. They delivered on every level. That's the kind of talent you want to work with again. And
they all did. There's interest from pre-orders and stuff, and now that we're putting the stuff online, there's interest in these things. It's honestly, right. I don't know if people, if people saw last night on the Royal Rumble, there was a commercial for that new Evolve show that a bunch of these guys, if you have an eagle eye, you would have seen Jackson Drake in that commercial. You would have seen Brad Baylor in that commercial. These guys are going to be on TV already.
Yeah.
And you know how it goes. Now that there's a platform for their popularity to be measured, the show is going to be on Tubi, so they can count the streams, and once some of these guys are being shown to be more popular, you can absolutely bet they're going to be offered NXT contracts. There's not a question in my mind that this Evolve show is a vehicle for some of these guys to get called up. And look, I'm not even going to pretend. Jackson Drake's 21. They're not going to rush him, right? They're just not going to rush him. But there's no question in my mind they're going to use these signings these shows, these streaming shows, as an opportunity to figure out what talent they want to bring in.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, as a fan, as an investor in these people on the most minute of levels, I'm looking forward to this show. I'm not.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it. 2B is not my favorite platform, but I'll still watch it.
Yeah, I'm not excited about the platform, and I'm not going to be like some vendors and act like, oh, we're close friends. Jackson's coming to our house for a barbecue in the summer. Are we friends with any of these people? Absolutely not. But it'll be cool to watch these guys grow when you've talked to them like intimately and worked with them on the ground level. I'm excited for it. It's going to be a hell of a ride, I think.
I agree. I think this whole I've said it so many times, it's actually annoying, but this whole project of working with these ID guys has completely revitalized my interest in all of this stuff. It just has.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. And just to put the finishing touches on the show, just like a couple funny little anecdotes, and then we can move on. I found it hilarious. I don't know if you were looking up, but like during intermission, when I went down to the locker room to try to scrounge up some drinks from the catering, and like, first of all, getting down, I felt like I was in one of those SmackDown vs. Raw video games when it was like open world and you just roamed around the locker room. Like I'm roaming around these random rooms. I went into the bar and Deonna Purrazzo was like in the bar alone, like watching TV. I finally found the catering table, so I get our drinks and I worked my way backwards. I actually almost.
Do you think that experience was that a valuable experience in teaching you how to book wrestling shows?
I mean, not as valuable as playing with action figures and video games, but I think being around enough guys in their spandex trunks has definitely given me an insight in booking a show. But it made me laugh when I came back out and I ended up coming back through the curtain. So I'm like walking down the aisle, basically holding like the vitamin waters. I don't think you were looking when I entered, but like I think a couple fans were thinking like a talent was coming out. It's just dumbass me with like waters and vitamin waters in my hand. Which
I did notice that. That was your moment.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There was probably another way I could have gotten back to the table, but I took advantage of it because I mean, how often do you walk down the aisle?
It would have been funny if they were testing the pyro at that time too. Alas, they were.
I was expecting that at one point when I walked over to do Seltzer's podcast. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. I'm like, oh, the pyro. My story is going to be that I was maimed at the PWJ show. I will be the damaged goods when the pyro burns me. But luckily it didn't go off. Anecdote number 2 that you were busting my balls about. Gil was nice enough to offer us banners, like signage from the show. He had like a 6-foot long like banner, poster image banner of the show, and then the maybe even larger than that sponsor banner. And of course, I took them, which you didn't. You pointed out the humor in that instantly.
Yeah, what are you gonna do with it?
I have no idea. They're currently. I'm looking at them right now. They're sitting in the office. I'll put them on a shelf somewhere. It's pretty cool. You never know. So we have those. And then after that, we said all our goodbyes. We loaded up the car. Of course, the windows were fogged up like you'd expect this time of year. So I started up. I start driving, and I figure, what the hell? I don't know which way I'm supposed to go. I'll make a right. And what happened when I made the right?
I don't remember what happened. Oh, well, of course you made a right down a one-way street the wrong direction, and I was screaming at you.
I would have. The window was completely covered. I would not have known until I don't know when. I would have made it all the way down the street if I was alone. So then we turned back in the parking lot. We went the right way. All's well that ends well. We didn't kill any wrestlers. We didn't, get arrested. So that's good.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah. So that's it for PWJ. It was a lot of fun.
The next one, yeah.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we'll definitely do the next one if the next one when it happens. That's my understanding that it's in the works, so that'll be a good time.
The wheels are in motion.
hopefully these ID talents will be available. I mean, unfortunately, this is one of these things where as people start to have experience some success, if they do that, it's great, but it also means they're less accessible. And then we can't do signing. It's harder for us to do signings with them. So, hopefully that in the interest of full candor, hopefully the contacts that we made at this show and the other dealings we've been doing are enough to, open some other doors. One of the things, and look, truth be told, one of the reasons for doing this, in addition to get inventory on people who might be successful or, to kind of get in on the ground floor on successful talents, is to also to have a nice Rolodex for when people do make it and we still have their contact information and, can hopefully parlay that into other things. So,
there might be more palm trees at future signings, but I mean, future signings can still happen theoretically when you build, a network of contacts.
Yep. That's that. There's no way to say. I mean, these guys, the truth of it is, all the people we worked with were happy to work with us because we are helping. Right now, they I hate to say this, but they kind of need people like us to help support their income stream. Once they get signed, they won't need us. It'll be beneficial, it'll be supplemental, but they won't need us. Right now, they need us. So it's that, from that perspective. I am never in a place where I'm not going to be extremely respectful of that and cognizant of that. Like, I am hyper aware that that this is a hugely beneficial thing for them at this moment. And you could see by the way they were acting, we could have told them to sign while they were standing on their head and they would have said yes. So I am never the kind of person who would take advantage of that situation. I'm the opposite. I'm like, no, anytime we ran into an issue, so it's like, apologizing if we had a pen die and we were apologizing for that, not because we genuinely felt like remorse, but because we wanted to treat these guys with the respect as if they were real superstars, and because I think it's important that we're building that into the relationship now, so that hopefully in the future, when they do make, and of the people we've done, we still have a couple coming up, but of the people we've done so far, I'm pretty confident, like legit, that 2 of them will be main roster talents within the next 5 years. I'm saying I'm pretty confident. The other ones, I'm not saying won't. I'm saying I'm pretty confident in betting that 2 of them will be main roster talents within 5 years. That means beyond NXT. I think all of them most of them are destined for at least NXT or ROH within the next year or 2.
I think I'd go a little further. I think I'd probably go maybe 4 of them for main roster and all of them for like NXT ROH.
Well, the thing is, someone like Jackson, right? I mean, he's so young that they're going to just want to season him. They want to keep him going. Someone like a Zeta, I could see Zeta in NXT in 6 months. Oh, yeah. Because the women, they do tend to truncate that timeline a little bit.
If you told me Zeta Steele's in next year's Women's Royal Rumble match, I'd say, yeah, that sounds about right. It wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. Oh, we forgot to mention, it was also really fun to see Diamond Virago at the show.
Oh, yes, Diamond.
We worked with Diamond before, and I gotta say, one of the things that we look out for when we make predictions about someone's future success is their professionalism, and Diamond understands professionalism. I'm not going to go into why I'm saying that. I'm very high on Diamond. She's also very young. And I think she's also going to be someone who is a name to look for in the future. But it was great seeing her. I was really happy to, actually.
Yeah.
Because I know that, she's someone who I really think I wish the best for, basically.
No, she's good. She's good people. And I'm confident she will be on an ID list. And we'll be texting her when she is. And we'll run it back with all new images. And I have no doubt in my mind. She's young. She gets it already. And she's only going to get better. And the sky is the limit, I think, for Diamond.
So, if you're shopping for autographs, check out www.markedoutcollectibles.com or our eBay store at Marked Out Collectibles. To contact us for any reason, please email markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com or join the Marked Out Collectibles official marketplace on Facebook. So, what's coming up for us? You told me that the Big Sean thing is actually being rescheduled after all?
I was wrong. I made that whole spiel how he might as well be Big Pun because it'll never happen, and then like a week later they rescheduled it. Yeah, so this upcoming Thursday at 6 p.m. I will be schlepping from my job all the way into the city after work, which will be not fun, but I'm actually quite excited. He's one of my favorite artists, so that's pretty cool for the price of a book. I mean, you really can't beat that. So I'll be rolling at that. I think Ira's going to join me at that one because, Ira's a huge rap fan. So that'll be good. And then we have the thing we've talked about quite often on February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day, with good old Bill Murray. Are you you really regret doing this?
I do.
That's crazy. He has a Grail level name that the most seasoned street graphers don't even have. No one expected him to ever do a signing. That's crazy.
I think you need to understand my headspace right now is that I'm just going to tell you this. I will derive no satisfaction from it. That's the problem.
That's insane.
On an intellectual level, all of what you're saying is true. And I can say, Bill Murray, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to really derive any satisfaction. He's going to be wearing a stupid hat. He's going to be next to these stupid people. Which is going to annoy me.
Those are his blood brothers, for your information. Those aren't just stupid people.
The pretense of all of it is just, it's irritating. It's one of those things that in other contexts, I wouldn't be irritated about it. But because right now I am not feeling this whole thing, I'm going to be irritated. I'm just warning you in advance. That's just how it's going to go. And that's the day we also have other things happening that day too, which are much more interesting. We have Jack Cartwheel that day, right? So,
yeah.
So it's going to be just that. It's going to be one of those things where I'm going to go from a high to a low. In addition to Bill Murray and Big Sean, we have our own signings. We do have WWE ID prospects, Jack Cartwheel, Sam Holloway, and Brad Baylor. All are available for pre-order. Jack Cartwheel, I think, is due the 14th. Brad Baylor is due the 7th of February. Sam Holloway is due in early March, right?
Yeah. We have Brad coming up, and like we mentioned, Brad actually, I think, had more TV time on the Royal Rumble than Ludwig Kaiser did. Yeah. He was on that commercial. He was on that commercial a lot. So, I mean, hashtag Hundos all day for that. He was all over that commercial. So we're with him next weekend, and,
Yeah,
I can't believe...
Brad's going to be a star. He's going to be a star. I know when he comes in the house, he's going to be... You just know he's going to have the aura. I just know
And no shade to Jack Cartwheel, but I mean, there's probably not many people that are more excited to meet Jack Cartwheel than Bill Murray. So I mean, that's big praise for Jack Cartwheel coming from you.
For me, Jack Cartwheel is interesting because of the circumstances. Bill Murray we're paying for a meet and greet to a show we don't want to attend, that we're not even going to attend the show. It's all just ridiculous to get a photo op that we're going to have to cut and snip just to get all these other people we don't want out of it. Just the whole thing is annoying to me. Now I'm going to sound like a complainer. And also it was expensive. It was like $300. It was like $300 or so. It was just infuriating, the whole thing.
That's $100 per blood brother. Yeah. It's not a bad deal.
Yeah. All this stuff is just, it makes me just reflect and think, what am I wasting my money on it? But I already did. So, it is what it is. We also have our private signings with Big Event New York talent. A couple more Mercedes Moné pre-orders came in. So if you have a Sasha Banks item or a Mercedes Moné item, or if you really like did you put your prints up for Mercedes?
I did.
So if you like any of those prints, they're exclusive to us. So put in your order for her. We have NXT's Lola Vice. We have Lita available. We have the Great Khali, who just has not been around that much, and so there are items for Great Khali that you should. And honestly, the price is pretty good. So on Great Khali, if there are any items, there's a very, very good chance he's not around again.
No, he's giant. Those giant performers never, travel too long.
Yeah, it's true. Titus O'Neil, Darren Young, those guys they're pretty cool. And finally, Tenzan from New Japan, NWO Japan.
Boy.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that because just any kind of rare names from when I was watching wrestling, because there just aren't that many out there who from when I was watching it. I shouldn't say I still watch it. From when I was a huge fan of it, so we're talking like mid to late 90s, there are just not that many names out there who are left who could still be brought into shows, and Tenzan was one of those names. It never occurred to me. It never occurred to me that someone would bring him in. And so when I see Tenzan brought in, it's like, yeah, this guy, NWO Japan member, multiple. He's a champion in multiple promotions, world singles champ, tag champ. Just one of those guys who's been on the New Japan roster. I want to say since like 92 or 93. So we're talking on over 30 years on that roster, over 30 years as an active performer. There's actually a really fun, there's lots of fun matches that Tenzan worked with WCW. They're really fun. There's a bunch of fun WCW Saturday night matches and weird things, WCW worldwide matches that he worked. That are really fun. That's the only way to say they're fun matches that he worked. So I just highly recommend, if you're at all interested in that era, if you're an NWO collector, this is your one chance for Tenzan. I mean, I've been waiting for Tenzan for decades to come, and there's never a whisper of it, and now he's here.
I wouldn't hold my breath. Honestly, there's few promoters out there like Tom Unger who manages to pull these guys out of the crust of the earth that you never expect to see. I wouldn't hold my breath to see him again. And just an overall message, I had to send a couple emails this week about this. When you send us in and you order mail in and you mail us items, if you have a very, very specific pen, we had one guy that wanted something very a specific color, specific texture for the cards, please just throw the pen in the box, because we have a lot of pens. We don't have everything. And, it just wouldn't be feasible in terms of time and money and everything else to go buy pens on an item by item basis. So if we don't have it in our repertoire, we don't have it.
So the truth of it is we use a handful of pens for most of our signings. I would say there's probably a half dozen that we use for almost everything. So if you want something that's out, unfortunately, if you buy other things and let them sit, they'll just dry out and be ruined. So it's not even like we can always have these on hand. There's so many permutations of these, you can't have all of them. So that's if you want something very specific. Look, if you want silver deco, we're gonna have silver deco. We have silver decos for days. If you want Staten Island blue, we've got Staten Island blue for days. But if you want something very specific, either ask in advance, or just the easiest way to do it is to drop the pen in the envelope, because we cannot guarantee that we have it. And some of these things you can't even buy them individually. You can only buy them as multi-pack. So I'm not spending $10 or $15 or $20 on a package of markers, which is our margin on that autograph anyway.
And then they will dry up anyway before we use them again. So it just would be a complete waste. Right.
So you have to be a steward of your own stuff, is what that means. And we appreciate all the orders, and but if you are look, and I am particular about markers, and there have been cases where I asked the promoter, do you have X, Y, and Z? And if they say no, I'll say, okay, I'm sending one. I've done it. Because I wanted to make sure that my stuff was done right.
Yeah, it's just like showing up at a table and just counting on the table having the pens you want. You need to be, if you're the type of person that you want your stuff exactly so, you need to make sure that you have everything provided to the talent and the promoter to make sure they can get it to the way you want it.
Yeah. So that's it about that. We're excited about our ID signings coming up. We're excited about Big Event. Big Event went from being they always put on a good show. Who am I kidding? They always pull these things out. I always say, how can they top the past show? And this show is crazy. So it's always a surprise on what they're doing over there.
Absolutely right.
And then that's pretty much it. We'll delve more into this stuff next week, I imagine. What do you have any? Yeah, we don't really have any other things. I guess you have Big Sean coming up this week. That'll be the thing you'll talk about next time.
Yes, Big Sean.
All right,
it's happening.
There we go. You were so convinced that it wasn't going to happen.
I was.
All right. So that's it for us. So for markedout.com, Marked Out Collectibles, and Marked Out Radio, I'm Sean.
And I'm Dana.
And we will see you again next week.